Welcome to Thursdays at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. My name is Jessie Ott, the host of this podcast, which is all about beverage innovation. I talk with innovation pioneers from agriculture to glass. Thank you for listening, and be sure to subscribe to be notified of all new episodes. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Thursdays at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. My name is Jessie Ott, and I have Marano here with Prima, Pave. Welcome, Marco. I'm super excited to have you here. How are you today?
I am doing excellent.
So should we jump right into the brand and talk about the story?
Absolutely. Well, firstly, Jessie, I want to thank you for having me on today and dedicating a segment to the non-alc wine space. And we're big fans, my wife and myself, of your podcast and how
Thank you.
really focus on the story and the makers. And as I was mentioning to you a little bit earlier, a lot of the podcasts tend to focus on a lot on business and trends. And I just love that, you really focus on storytelling and origin stories and the makers. So thank you for doing that. So important.
No, thank you. I appreciate that.
The non-alcoholic world, it's getting a lot of buzz these days. And, I think it's definitely moved from, a trend last year, I guess, in media and the lexicon of the media was a trend to now it's trending, which is different. And I think the last 23 was that move from trend to trending. And now it's, you're starting to see this push of having beautifully crafted non-alcoholic adult beverages, whether that's, non-alcoholic wine, beer, spirits, and completely new things, new categories come to the market that, are beyond dry January. They're really now all year. And I think that's kind of what we've seen in this shift, and it's exciting.
100%.
And so just thank you again for having us on. About the brand, I'm sounding.
I was just gonna say I haven't tried any wines yet. I have been trying different spirits and making different cocktails, which gives you the pleasure of still getting the equipment out and doing your recipes and whatnot, which is really fun.
Yeah.
So I'm excited, Marco, that you came on to share these wines with me. I can't wait.
Thank you. And the origin story, and I'll speak a little bit about the brand, but I think kind of to see the evolution of where dry January now is almost becoming called, more normally, damp January, is kind of the shift of where we are.
I like it.
Where it came from a very let's take a whole month off of drinking to this moderation idea and the moderation culture that you're seeing. In particular through millennial into Gen Z type of age groups, where it's very interesting. And I just had a friend, a very good college friend I spoke to, who told me that him and the entire baseball dads of his son's team are all doing a dry/damp January. This was not even the case last year. So it's interesting to see that and then feeling good about it. It's my sleep is better. I have more energy. It's so I think as we just all, I'm 41, coming to this age, and I have a toddler, that kind of energy and health and kind of where you're at a certain stage, it becomes, enjoying the occasion, enjoying the ritual, enjoying the experience, but not dealing with the aftermath a lot of the time because it's fun at this age. So I think what we're seeing, and especially in my house, is, Prima Pave is on the table, on Monday, Tuesday nights, maybe a Wednesday, and then it becomes, your Thursday or Friday, you start to open your really nice bottles. It's almost I haven't had any alcohol 3 or 4 days. I've been good to my body, myself. Now I want to really enjoy something special. And I think you're kind of seeing that all over, especially with our age group, where kind of that everyday wine ritual is really on the wayside. It's really going down, and that it's more about having more special bottles, special experiences when you are opening and can enjoy a glass of wine. So anyway, our story begins with my wife Dijo's pregnancy. It was the summer of 2020. Dijon and I are both complete wine geeks. We're both CSW, Certified Specialist in Wine. Can talk about wine for hours. And in my family, that comes from southern Italy, Campania, I actually have family that's been growing and cultivating grapes. So Fiano, Greco di Tufo, Falanghina, some of these iconic southern Italian wines for over 75 years, and have really been in the vineyard and selling premium grapes, choice grapes, to large producers, large wineries. So for me, it's always been part of this, seeing really vineyard to bottle has been in my family. And I actually had a sip of Taurasi before I even had a soda, so I was probably like 5 or something, just with uncles around the table in Italy. And so that's, just a little bit about our origin and our family ties to the wine industry. And what happened was, it was August 2020, and Dijon found out that she was pregnant, and us being a little bit older parents, it was an exciting time, but it was also a time that was a little bit muted with what was going on in the world at the time of the pandemic. What I tried to do was, I, at that time, ordered whatever was a non-alcoholic, alcohol-free wine on the market. And I had to already be careful with that, because Dijon's commitment was to really be no alcohol throughout the pregnancy and thereafter nursing. And as you may know, a lot of legally, a non-alcoholic wine in the United States can actually have up to 0.5% of alcohol. So, for her, that was like a big deal. And then to actually find, completely 0.0% ABV wines was already a little bit of a challenge. And then I noticed after a couple months of ordering these wines, I would take the first sip or half a glass alongside her and enjoy that and have some celebration for this time. I noticed that everything else is really ending up down the drain. And so after about 2 months of this, she said, I asked her, I said, what's going on? And she just said, honey, I really appreciate it, but, save our money and stop buying this. It's really undrinkable. And I appreciate the celebration and the ritual and occasion, but it's just not for my palate. And I asked, why is that? And for her, they were just very sweet. A lot of them had added sugar or added flavors, flavorings, other things that were just not, great, different type of extracts or teas or juices and all kinds of other things. And she just, for her, what she is, loves her sparkling wines, loves, her bubbles, and tends to like drier or extra drier brut type of wines. They just were not fitting the bill. So it began the discussion, and I guess the inspiration was out of frustration. I think she looked at me and said, so you get pregnant and this is a blank you have to look forward to. It's not really happy, about it. It was like, oh, we're all mothers to be, and then we get like downgraded to this if you like wine, So it was born out of frustration. And it began the idea, can you create, really a fine wine first and foremost that happens to not have alcohol in it? And it's, sounds like a simple, few words, but in reality, that was extremely hard. And, non-alcoholic wines were nothing that was new per se. It had been around for many years, but it was never a focus on quality, never a focus on, starting, in the vineyard with that kind of care. It was really a kind of bulk, leftover grade, commercial de-alcoholization type of system, type of product. So that started the idea. I think we were very naive in our thinking of, this excitement, even though you had seen kind of the trends of non-alcoholics starting to grow and more people wanted it. I think we completely overestimated the interest from farmers or winemakers wanting to do something that was elevated and non-alcoholic. We had over the years gotten to know many different winemakers through a couple other hospitality companies that we have and that we work with. And so we had access to a lot within the Mediterranean, and we had these conversations, and there was really just, no interest, or really just kind of a line in the sand, like you can never make a real good non-alcoholic wine. So that process was a few months of, not really getting anywhere. And finally, through a few different contacts in Italy, which again is one of the closest tied to our heritage, and Dijon is really her favorite. Non-alc wines tend to be Franciacorta, Gentle d'Alc, and some of the Prosecco producers. We met through a few different contacts, a winemaker that was excited about the project. At the same time, there was also a technological advancement in the industry. So we kind of had always had these two different types of de-alcoholized wine, spinning cone, which was removing alcohol in 20 minutes, and then vacuum distillation, which is really had been in Germany for about 80 plus years. Kind of like older technology, but something that was I would say producing better results than the spinning cone, but still lacking to me in some of the mouthfeel and texture and complexity. And then the third was reverse osmosis, and that's when we saw had read a bit more about it, understood the technology, and understood that it was more labor intensive and that it de-alcoholizes much lower and slower over a series of weeks instead of minutes. We were excited about it because, we thought this can preserve more of that wine profile in removing the alcohol, even though it is going to be more labor intensive. So those are kind of the pieces that came together when we formed our team and kind of the whole, process. But we understood, we really have to go vineyard to bottle with this. You have to show kind of care in each phase of that production process. So, sustainably farmed grapes, where we started with our Blanc de Blanc and our Grand Pave, which we'll taste in a second, was in Friuli. And, we had beautiful grapes from Friuli that, were sustainably farmed, that are non-GMO certified, and going through the entire production process of making a fully vinified fermented wine in the traditional way is kind of where we want to start. So if you actually look at our Blanc de Blanc or our Grand Pave, when it's done being vinified and it's an alcoholic white wine, still wine, you would take a sip and say, wow, that's delicious, or that's interesting. And that's really where we want to start, without having to do any additives and having something be still an all-natural product. And then from there, we take our vinified still wine that's fully alcoholic, fully goes through the process as you would in traditional winemaking. Then we de-alcoholize it through our method, as I mentioned, the low and slow method. And then at the very end, at least with our sparkling collection here, which we're tasting today, we then have to add in like CO2 carefully, to achieve the bubbles. But even here, we wanted to create different bubble complexity. And this is, I guess some of the science behind it, because obviously you're not getting bubbles in the bottle once you take out the alcohol, but you're doing it in a way that, can you achieve a different feel? So you'll taste right now, the Grand Pave, much more of a, for a palate of someone who enjoys a Franciacorta, Gentle d'Alc, and with some natural yeast work, which you'll see in there. So it's a little bit different bubble. You get some of that breadiness, yeastiness, and that's an expression. Whereas our Blanc de Blanc is very much in the vein of how you would have the bubbles of a Charmat Prosecco method, right? A little bit bigger bubbles, a little bit more fruitier. There is no, that natural yeast in there, so you're not getting the breadiness. It's much, it's lighter. So that's, but the exciting part is looking at Italy as a blank canvas for us and really celebrating all these grapes and varietals, but doing it in a way that's interesting, creating new expressions. So, for example, our Blanc de Blanc is a Gewürztraminer Sauvignon Blanc Pinot Grigio blend, which in a traditional alcohol wine setting or bottle or producer, you would never get those blended together. Or a Rosé Brut introduces Montepulciano d'Abruzzo from, central Italy. But it's having this blank canvas to say, how can I create something beautiful and delicious with the complexity of wine for someone who enjoys fine wines, but is taking a night off for whatever reason, off alcohol, you know, wowing them, giving them something delicious, but, you know, doing it in ways that stand up to the removal of alcohol at the end. And for us, that's kind of your end point. You have to say, after you take out the alcohol, what is the most beautiful expressions? And we did a lot of iterations and experimentation, and we had to kind of open up that appellation mindset. You know, it couldn't just be only Friuli, because when we went to make our Rosé Brut, and even though the white varietals sung beautifully in the glass, once we introduced some of the native varietals of reds into that blend, they didn't do it. You know, we came at the end of de-alkalizing, we're like, you know, they're older climate red grapes, you know, they're a little bit more nuanced, they're not so fruity. It just wasn't adding anything, very little after that alcoholism at the end. So we had to say, okay, we have to open this up. We can't be in that kind of traditional mindset. The canvas is Italy, and we're always there to celebrate all the wonderful varietals of Italy. But it couldn't just be only in that appellation. We had to see what red would really come into that Rosé Brut and make it, you know, something special. So that's the exciting part, though, is I think kind of creating all new expressions and things that are interesting, but they're still wine.
Is it all the same winemaker sourcing different grapes then?
So the sourcing is actually always the same farmers that we're working with, and the winemaker, yes, is also the same for us.
And so the process that you picked, you said there's 3 different processes of de-alcoholization. Did you work with the winemaker on which process worked the best for the grapes, or whatever process or feel you were trying to get to?
Yes. So we very much had a vision of the palate and you know, just through our wine knowledge and knowledge of the varietals, what we really want to achieve. We want to come out with a, you know, drier profiles for the kind of the flagship, because again, as I mentioned, there's a lot of what was on the market was very kind of sweeter, grape juice-esque, for lack of a better term, types of profiles. So we wanted something more complexity, some minerality, a drier finish. So that's kind of where we started with, but also understanding that when you are de-alcoholizing, you do have to have things in there that do add that fruitiness and sweetness already, you know, that varietal. So if you start with I'm going to start with how you make an alcoholic version of a very dry white. After you de-alkalize, it's going to be undrinkable. It's going to be there's no fruit. It's going to be sour. So it's finding that blend and going through. I mean, it was the pandemic, so we were not able to travel during a lot of this.
Yeah, that's true.
Initial stages. So we would just have samples and samples and samples shipped from Italy to California. And some of them were very funny because it was not even carbonated that well, because it was traveling and rattling around and getting to us. And it's good, but it's flat. We need to do it again with bubbles.
Oh,
so
no.
It was but it was a lot of and on the technology side, I think we always, on the de-alcoholization method, we had tried a couple examples of reverse osmosis end result there, and we just thought it just did so much better than what was out there as older technologies as far as on the wine side, really what it was able to do. But again, it's really, in my opinion, it's a concert of everything. The technology is a piece, but it's everything together that, if you're putting that care, and we think we really were innovators in the space to do that, say from the beginning, what we're choosing in the vineyard to the end, and also the bottle experience and the label and just how things are, also presented, that it's not just put it on the shelf at the bottom if someone comes and asks it for non-alc, but something that, can be celebrated, can be on the shelf, or in Italy or fine wine shops, or, most recently Williams Sonoma, brought us in as something that they had never bought it, a non-alcoholic wine, but something to have that presentation and caring to it again was important, because on any given day, 1/3, at least in the US, 1/3 of Americans do not consume alcohol. So they had never really been given elevated options, something that gave them the same experience and ritual as a fine wine or elevated cocktail, like you mentioned earlier. So That's why it's a very exciting time for the space.
And it's the right time.
Right now. Absolutely. So should we try the Grand Cuvée
let's
together?
get into the fun stuff.
I already had some, but I'll top off here a little bit more.
Cheater.
So, our Grand Cuvées are actually our newest release. So this was a limited edition for the holiday release. We released it right at the end of November. Yep, the black bottle. Yep. We only produced 3,000 of these, and they basically sold out within about 7 weeks.
Wow.
This is one of the driest, lowest residual sugar expressions on the market today. So really here, what we were trying to do was give someone who enjoys a Brut Nature Zero Dosage champagne style, or, French or dark, gentle dark, that expression. So it's 100% Friulian Chardonnay, sustainably farmed. It's also vegan certified.
Nice.
Which is first in our collection to have that, and we're working on the other ones to become vegan certified as well, hopefully in the next couple of years. But it's really meant to be a bone dry. The entire bottle is 94 calories, to put into perspective. So
I can drink the whole bottle.
Absolutely. And we did some work with natural yeast. So here you're going to get a little bit of that breadiness.
Yeah, you can smell it.
And yeah. So cheers.
I mean, I was showing, I know this is audio at first and then YouTube, but when you see the YouTube video, you can see all the bubbles. It looks just exactly like normal sparkling or champagne. Yummy. Yeah.
I'm glad you enjoy it. So this, again, is an expression of Friulian Chardonnay. Chardonnay from Friuli tends to be a little bit more greener in its notes. It is a little bit more, for me, I get like a lemon verbena. I don't like to always lead the tasting, but that's for me. I think it's always very personal. Other people say I really just get that breadiness, and I think it activates, like all wines, activates your palate a little differently, and kind of what you bring to that. But
there's definitely citrus.
But I like that. Citrus and a little bit of that green quality for me, what you see up with the Chardonnay, a colder climate Chardonnay up there. And this is actually a little higher elevation when we go now to our Blanc de Blanc. It's about 100 meters lower. So this is, a little bit higher up. So very good. So yeah, that's been our latest release. Our original, let's say our original flagship 3 was our Blanc de Blanc, our Rosé Brut, and our Rosé Dolce. So the Blanc de Blanc, which is our next expression, this really is something that I say on the given day, the Rosé Brut and Blanc de Blanc kind of switch off on their which one is the number one seller, I guess.
Really?
But they're both in,
nice.
Yeah, the Rosé Brut and Blanc de Blanc are both in umpteen beverage programs around the U.S. I think that's something that's very exciting.
It is.
And it's something that we always focus on, given our backgrounds in hospitality and restaurants and bars. We always saw that such an important piece was going to be elevating non-alcoholic options on the menu. And that's really where we started. So our Blanc de Blanc is on a number of tasting menus at James Beard awarded restaurants, Michelin rated restaurants, world's 50 best bars. And again, here, complexity, this is 100% all in Friuli again, but here you have a rare blend of Gewürztraminer, Pinot Grigio, and Sauvignon Blanc. This, I'm going to say, is more on the dry, so still dry, but not like the Grand Cuvée, which is like a brut. This is extra dry brut. This is going to be dry and extra dry, but still an entire bottle's under 140 calories, less than a soda. So again, something that is very food friendly is something that we also wanted to bring to the. So cheers to that. Into the next question I have. Okay, and that's our Blanc de Blanc.
Wow, it's very similar to me. It's very high, like the citrus and the acid is really great. It's got a really nice mouthfeel. Yeah, it's got a really nice finish
Yeah.
to it, and it's really just a lovely thing, wine to or sparkling to, or is it technically prosecco?
I mean, there's no Glera grape in it, so I guess we can't call it prosecco, but but in its profile, yes, like a, Northern Italian, lighter white, sparkling, a little bit bigger bubbles in the Grand Cuvée, again, like Charmat method style bubbles. But again, that's, we want to create a different expression. So that, you'll see is kind of in all of them, they each have their own personality. But that was a very exciting,
Yeah.
it was the Blanc de Blanc, which was our very first expression that we developed, was kind of like what we thought, like how we thought it was going to work was exactly how it came out. So we're like, yes. And now Rosé Brut, the Rosé Brut was like not like the Rosé Brut was like a lot of fails because it was just like, okay, this doesn't taste like rosé. It's like kind of looks, it looks pink, but like tastes like the Blanc de Blanc. So the grapes were not like giving us a different body, a different flavor. Like it wasn't doing it because again, a lot of those red varietals up in northeastern Italy, they're lighter, kind of more floral and aromatic in nature, as opposed to giving you that nice red fruit, So they said, okay, let's mix it up. And we're going to go to central Italy. And then we started kind of southern Central Italy. So let's taste the Rosé Brut now, which I'll open up a fresh one here. Good. But the Rosé Brut is the blend of the Gewürztraminer, Pinot Grigio, and Sauvignon Blanc, but also the introduction of multiple channel Brut, so from the Chieti province in central Italy. This is for me, when you taste it, and I'll wait till you enjoy it.
Oh wow, yummy!
The Rosé Brut for me is a little bit of Italy meets the south of France, because I feel like you definitely do have the character of a rosato in Italy, but you definitely, for me, I get that tangerine, kind of those Mediterranean, citrus elements that you get from a lot of the Provençal rosés. So again, here's something that together, when they come together, they're giving you this unique profile. You wouldn't normally get that in a rosato in Italy, but when it comes together and with these blends, it gives you a little bit of that, along with, again, it is uniquely Italian. It is all from, Italian terroir and Italian varietals, but again, bringing together a new kind of flavor profile expression, something that pairs beautifully with wine, or with food. So, this is on the menu. This is a welcome board of 11 Madison Park when you walk into New York. If you say I don't drink alcohol, you get a glass of the Rosé Brut. And this is for us the things that excite us. Taking a sommelier through the journey of a proper story, vineyard to bottle, and giving them something of quality that can be shared with patrons and what they can enjoy in the ritual and the celebration, storytelling of wine with, in concert with food, because generally speaking, most people see wine as the beverage when you're talking about, food or a nice dinner out or a nice dinner at home. So being able to have that, I would say even confidence at a restaurant level in the quality in the glass and story to present that in that form in multi-Michelin setting is something that's really never happened before.
Because the kind of is really, really good. You guys nailed it. I can see why this one is kind of a go-getter. And the 11, what is it, 11? The restaurant chain you were talking about? 11 Madison. Yes.
Oh, you get 11 Madison Park.
I can see that.
Michelin. Yeah. And so the entire collection here is actually garnered medals at major wine competitions. That was always something for us where we said we want to go enter the the world's most, the most competitive, prestigious wine competitions, because we really want, the judges who are judging the IWSC in London, San Francisco International Wine Competition, Sommelier's Choice, to taste it and to give us their honest feedback. That was like the beginning. Like, we were proud of it, but we're like, you know what? Let's see what happens. So the Rosé Brut was like our very first entrant, and it received a 94-point score in London. So that was special. And just last month, we entered the San Francisco International Wine Competition, the entire collection medal, all four. So again, trying to just create an elevated experience for, people who enjoy the taste of wine, who drink wine. And I think that's kind of when you're looking at the non-alcoholic industry right now. There's people who are catering to someone who's maybe never had a sip of alcohol and never tried wine, don't really have a frame of reference on what is that taste of a fine wine. And I'm proud to say that I think, the entire collection
100%.
speaks to that person and can be enjoyed just as much as the person who consumes 2 bottles of Prosecco a week of alcoholic versions of
delicious.
And can take a night off.
These are really, really well done. And I love the process that you and your wife went through on
means a lot, Jesse.
getting it right from the vineyard. That's that when you, like you said, that's a story you can take into any restaurant. And people that love those stories, who care about terroir, who care about quality, who care about where it comes from, those are huge selling points in our industry. And so that was really well thought out. So well done.
Thank you. And I think from the beginning, we also, as a journey, really cared about provenance and releasing, technical sheets and tasting notes that people were like, well, this is non-alcoholic. Yes. But we were like, no, but this is everything that's going into this. This is the soil type, our Chardonnay from Friuli, it is, gravel and pebbles, and like sharing that, with, because it was just, there just wasn't that care, and really being careful about like the food pairing suggestions and all that, was so important for us at the beginning. And, seen a lot of brands now come there, later, but I think at the beginning, we were one of the first to do that, for sure. So our last expression today is our Rosé Dolce Demi-Sec. So this is for people who enjoy a little bit more residual sugar in their wine, a little bit more, I'm going to say again, it's a unique profile, but somewhere between an off-dry Lambrusco and maybe a rosé, a Braghetto d'Apuy, for example. Again, it has this one to me very much has this unique nose and taste and everything. But if you are someone who enjoys kind of that more, demi-sec, Lambrusco, and Braghetto profile.
Cheers.
So
he's making me drink alone, folks.
Cheers. I'll let you
just kidding.
Enjoy that one.
Look, yeah. No,
I don't have one open, but I'm going to finish my Blanc de Blanc, which is sitting.
That is so smooth.
So this, I call this kind of our cult wine because along with the Grand Cuvée, it's a smaller production. The Grand Cuvée and the Rosé Dolce Demi-Sec are probably together roughly about 20-25% of what we produce. The bulk is the Blanc de Blanc and Rosé Brut.
Seriously.
But this has like diehard fans. And this is actually one a lot of people in the industry, like bartenders, restaurateurs, they love to drink this. Kind of their night off of drinking, it actually won the highest score of any non-alcoholic wine at the Sommelier's Choice Awards last year. But it's wonderful. What I love about is that I love the color of the Rosé Dolce, but I also love just the mouthfeel, like the viscosity you get. It has that wonderful, but I think it's like a blood orange, strawberry jam, like you that. But then it has this like lively acidity at the end to just like balance out what you're eating. So I love to have this on how you would like, even with the other day I had it with a local cheese from Petaluma here in California. That's kind of like I would say a funky kind of Epoisse style cheese. It was like delicious, or, you could do it on a Stilton, something that's kind of really contrasting. It does beautifully. But I also really, I love to surprise and bring the Rosé Dolce to meals out with friends, especially when we're spicy. Like, I love this with Korean barbecue, like really spicy bulgogi.
Perfect.
Spicy pork, like with some Rosé Dolce, is just like it's a great pairing.
Love the sweeter style. I could see this being a huge brand, a huge SKU for you guys. Not that the other ones aren't as good, but just thinking about the consumer profile and how much they love sweet, which is fine. But yeah, I could see this being a big hit. It's delicious. So, what is the price point of all of these?
So our Blanc de Blanc, Rosé Brut, and Rosé Dolce are all priced at $25 US. That's on our website. With retailers across the country, again, depends a little bit about, where they are and, shipping and all those fun things. But generally, you'll see it on the shelf around 26 to 28, even up to the US. Canada obviously has this price point. We're right now in 8 international markets. So we're in the UK, we're in Ireland, throughout, obviously throughout Italy, we're also in Korea and Vietnam. So Southeast Asia is growing for us. But that's the pricing there. The Grand Cuvée, which was our, the smallest release, as I mentioned, vegan certified, that's $29 a bottle. I'm going to say most retailers have it on the shelf at $30 to $32 there. The exciting thing, which for us was something very important as we were really trying to bring the quality of non-alcoholic winemaking, to the forefront. And in a way, it's kind of it's the challenge, but also the exciting part of where non-alcoholic wine lives in the non-alcoholic adult beverage space. In the way beer, I will call beer, which is the biggest market in non-alcoholic, it had the advantage of it was kind of like you had the original like O'Doul's and Zima, and then they just the brands died off, and then it was just nothing, and then it was just oh, we're going to do non-alcoholic wine or a non-alcoholic beer, and big players immediately just came in and just made it like Heineken Zero and this and that, and decent to good quality, and then there's some craftsmanship, right? Non-alcoholic spirits have just zero preconceived notion because it just wasn't done, and then kind of just so you had a lot of these kind of batch and smaller distillers doing it. The challenge for non-alcoholic wine is it's always been there but bad. So it's kind of you're undoing a lot of preconceived notion and just low price, low quality. And so we thought it was really important for it to be accessible to a lot of different people to even try the first time. So last year in the spring, we actually released single pour 200 ml splits of our signature collection. It sold out extremely fast, and we had to double production, which it just landed another container last week from Italy. So the thing with that is, it's been so important also for restaurant, bars to have that single pour as well, because when you're dealing with the growing category, it's not only useful for cocktails, but also by the glass at the table, and having that kind of storage and, storing it well with minimal waste, So obviously we have different programs that go through lots and lots and lots of full-size bottles and do it extremely well, and have it on the menu in multiple kind of use formats, by glass, by the bottle, and cocktails. But the single pour has just been another way for people to enjoy it, and also, just that retailers, seeing it and say, wow, I can try one or two, at $9 a split, and then see which one I like. It's your expression, and then I'll come back full bottle. So it's been really that's been really important. I think it continues to be important to give it, accessible formats for people to get excited and try it and change
so
those
how do
perceptions
people
is really important too.
buy it, or
So
where can they find it? I mean, you mentioned your website. Do you want to tell them what your website is?
there. Yeah, so primapave.com. You can certainly order and we ship all over the United States because it is a completely non-alcoholic product. So there is no, regulation as to where, no limits as to shipping directly to consumer like traditional, alcohol products. So that's only one vehicle. We're also sold throughout 42 states at many different fine wine shops, gourmet markets. Willing Sonoma, as I said, is also nationwide. You can combine it with your Willing Sonoma order, and can come there even if they carry our entire range. So that's great as well. And you'll find this on a lot of menus as well, in restaurants and bars. So we encourage people all the time. We're very hands-on. If you're like, where can I buy it near me? Actually our team is answers a lot of DMs that way on Instagram, emails, we're totally fine where you can grab it, and say oh, if it's not, it's an hour away, let people know that, there's still, I think in general for the industry, getting it into easier access places, is really important. But yeah, for now there's definitely in 42 states, probably at least a couple points of sale, and obviously some states many more. Kind of overall, at least
great.
2 to 3 places you can get in every state.
I love your story, and the wines are lovely. They're really high quality. I love the detail that you went into to create a really high quality product, because it's definitely it has paid off, and it will continue to pay off. And if you started this project in 2000, in August or September of 2000, and you're already in that many markets, then you're doing something right, because that's really fast. That is really fast. You got quality in a bottle.
Thank you. Actually, the official launch was January 2022. So we're actually on just at 2 years. So yeah, it's been a very quick and fast growth story. But for us, I've said this again. I think the future, especially in the non-alcoholic space, is to continue developing quality, and not having it be looked at as a lab created beverage, and we are really committed to that. What does that mean? That means when a crack cuvee sells out,
Yep.
it's done till the next vintage. So that's also kind of the way we look at it. So that's our commitment to it, and growing it, but keeping the quality there, and always putting that at the forefront,
right.
Because to go back is not an option. Tripling, dupling, scaling to millions and millions of bottles a year right now at this point is just not. It's not what we're interested in, and not what we're going to do, because then you will definitely lose the quality.
Any
then you have to start making it
not
certain way.
Having bubbles and just doing still non-alcoholic wines?
It is a project that we have been exploring for about 18 months now. It is very interesting. I think there's a big gap in quality there. I mean, probably even more so now that where we are at the sparkling level. I think on the still level, it's really just
why the
quality
difference
is really low. So I think that's I think really where you run into it is the flavor profile and the bubbles in sparkling are just at this point a little bit now easier to achieve in a natural way. So again, if you're looking at it from an all natural, not trying to make it in the lab with a lot of chemicals and things like that, trying to replicate certain things, or do them in a certain way as like a high tannic red wine with the mouthfeel, the weight, that kind of lushness to it it's just very hard to do with non-alcoholic right now, and no one's really nailed that. I think we're seeing it is a little bit better on the white and rosé, and so we continue to experiment there. So we are, but we just don't want to release anything until we feel it's at the count of the sparkles, and it's just I think it's been a little bit of the difficulties mostly around that kind of that the tannins and the integration and that kind of mouthfeel and weight has just been really hard to achieve.
I talked to a gentleman just over a year ago, and I believe he was living in Israel working for a company that had this machine that could literally make wine like normal, and then take out the components, the flavors, and I don't know what all, take them out, de-alcoholize it, and then put them back in. Have you heard of that technology? I could, if you're interested, I could find out, but
I haven't. Actually, I have. I don't recall the name, but I have, and I do believe they recently received a pretty significant investment. So, that's certainly, if it's done in a way, we're always looking at new technologies for that. But up to now, it's been, the stills. Yeah. Or have a long way to go. So
that's exciting.
It's kind of the next frontier for us, certainly, and I think we get an email every week about when you going to launch a still. So we're working on it, but we want to make sure it's high quality and not just put something out there because it's growing and just put it out there because So that's nice. Kind of where we're at right now.
Well, is there anything else we missed about the brand that you want to mention before we get into your journey?
No, I think
awesome.
we covered everything.
So, in transition here, Marco, where are you originally from?
So I'm actually born here in Los Angeles in Southern California. I'm a dual citizen with Italy. So I'm actually a U.S. and Italian citizen. My father immigrated from Italy here to California in the 60s. And he was really the only one in the family to do that. So my connection with all the relatives over in Italy and going there growing up has always been very strong. And I did some college there. I did some high school there, like the semester in both those cases, and speak the language. So even though I was born here, I really, at this point, I spent half of my life there.
That's great.
And half, here in the U.S. So, well, it's always really been part of my life, to be honest with you. And I think I mentioned that earlier, is that if you look at my very first job was in the restaurant industry. It was actually a bus boy. That was like my first job in high school. And then I went to NYU in New York, and my first job there was a wine bar, pouring wine for the servers in the wine bar at this Tuscan restaurant that's no longer in the East Village of New York, but at the time it had about 1,000 wines on the menu. So I was studying and also studying the wine ones, so it's kind of funny. So it's always been, as far as wine and food have been, throughout my life in many different ways. The departure from that was a career in finance for about 10 years, where certainly the skills learned there and honed there, help with starting the business. And I think for both my wife and I, she came from Hollywood in the entertainment industry before we started our first venture together. which was 15 years ago. Our first company and it's always been dedicated to tailor-made private food and wine experiences in Europe. So a little bit more on the travel and tourism side, but from that lens, we got to develop over 15 years wonderful relationships with hundreds of restaurants, hundreds of winemakers, distilleries around Europe, obviously 5-star hotels, and that was something that, the art of hospitality. I mean, I guess you could say has been with me since my first job at 15. I think that was how we, viewed even, there, which was to come from that experience, that hospitality standpoint, the ritual around every component of that experience with the non-alcoholic wine and creating that for guests. So that's a long-winded question, I guess, or answer to say I've been in the hospitality, food and beverage world for now 26 years, and this
and it's been ingrained ever since you were little.
Yeah, exactly. With my family, growing grapes and cultivating grapes, and making wine in Campania in southern Italy for 75 years. As I was showing with you, my first sip of something that wasn't milk or water was Albianico. So that was just my heritage, and it was just part of, at that time, it was homemade wine at the table with cousins and uncles who were, growing grapes for our now, large, well-known brands from Southern Italy, wine brands, winemakers. So yeah, it's been an intimate part. I'm also, just my wife and I are, we just love growing things. Even here in California, there's an obsession with the fruit trees in the backyard here and vegetables, eating everything.
I love that.
Tree to plate as much as possible. That's been an important.
I like that a lot. I'd like to do that, but given that we're here such a short amount of time, it's difficult to continue to grow things if it's not being taken care of. If it's being left for 3 months, it's just kind of turns into weeds.
Yeah.
Or the squirrels get it, or whatever. Yeah, but that's
that's like. Yeah, we spend about 3 months out of the year in Europe. Yeah, definitely on those times, what we say is we just tell, family or even, our lovely people who looked after our house. We just say, don't let it fall and go to waste. Enjoy all the fruit and vegetables you can, because it'll pay me more to see, the
100%.
tomato rotting in the grass.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
it
at least it's
growing.
going somewhere.
So,
yeah.
Do you have any mentors that you'd like to mention that have kind of helped you throughout your journey?
Sure. For me, I'll mention a couple, but definitely I had a mentor, believe it or not, in my first 10 years in finance, who actually, when I moved to New York, where I had lived for 8 years between where I school in New York University and kind of starting there in the finance and wealth management world, he actually hired me to come to Los Angeles at that time, and he is just such an elegant, gentleman from England, from the UK. He was, had a wonderful background, from Cambridge, extremely well spoken, and he really took that, I guess, what was always in me as the hospitality and service things that I grew up with, and that were just part of my being, but he brought that into kind of like every, that elegance and focus on people.
I've never heard
even
of
in
that
the
before.
finance world, which doesn't happen often, but he had such a way, to do that, to give an experience, even like the most basic, like the client meeting, talking about a portfolio, but he would still make it an experience. And I think for me, it was a mentorship, because it's saying, if you can bring an experience to something that can be, that can be pretty boring to go over, like your bond portfolio or something like that, like he can do it, and he can do it with elegance and be so well spoken and do it in a way Um, it just, it that consultative way of taking care of people, I think is something that very much learned. So it's something that's important kind of in all of our companies, whether that's a sales or client management person, to be all of them to be able to have that eloquence and that kind of, that presence, but also to do it in a way that, is always thinking of the person in front of them first. And what are you giving them, experience, or is it education? But, are you doing it in a way that is, gracious, with integrity and doing it that,
right.
That is kind. And I think it is a lot of things that lack a lot of the time, like you said, especially today, it's kind of harder and harder to find, great service. But I think like great service and hospitality, it's something that definitely,
do you have any resources that you've used over your career? Any books or podcasts? I know you like to listen to podcasts, or,
Yeah, I do. I mean, I like to. I definitely enjoy podcasts, but I look at. I am very much someone who gets inspired by stories. So I was going to mention, even though it wasn't a mentor, and I think. Well, I'm speaking of Richard as my mentor in many ways in a work and career way. I feel like I have dozens of mentors because the stories, I am someone who very much gets inspired by stories. If you look at someone like, not a lot of people know this, but Del Vecchio, who recently passed away, Mr. Del Vecchio was actually the person who founded Luxottica, which is one of the world's largest manufacturers, makers of eyeglasses. Ray-Bans, you name it, are made from Luxottica. And when you read about his story as an orphan in post-war Italy, like working in a factory, like picking that up and creating a luxury brand where that wasn't his, his heritage, his pedigree didn't come from a family of multi-generations of that, but that kind of dedication, to craftsmanship and just making something exceptional. Those kind of stories do inspire me, because when people really put that much care in every detail, to build something from the ground up, I've read those stories, and those have definitely informed me and inspired me.
I like that. That's why I do the podcast, because stories are, they tell more than just a brand story. They tell you the reason behind it and how you got there, and that's the heart and soul of what we do here at Thursday Thursdays. What do you think are the main pain points in the industry today?
Well, I think that I should have touched on a few earlier about the non-alcoholic wine.
Right.
I'll say baggage, for lack of a better term, because I just think we've been so many years of decades and decades of poor quality and not really caring about what goes into that bottle. But I think that is changing and slowly changing, but it's definitely changing. So I think, again, that pain point, if you will, or opportunity or semi-challenges around education. And a lot of that education can really only happen when it's, liquid to lips, as they say. And so I think that's a challenge. I try to do that on a global level with a new category, but it's not really new, but it's like 2.0. It is a challenge in that way. So I think that's one of the biggest ones. And then, once we enjoy tasting like this, and this is very, today is very reminiscent of our very first client that we ever had. First order of Prima Pave was after a Zoom tasting like this. It was, for me, this is nostalgic. It was a phenomenal guy, innovator, Joshua James, up in the Bay Area, and he has one of the largest selection. I think he has the largest selection of non-alcoholic brands in all of California, but he was one of the first ones, and also a wonderful story with Joshua, kind person. But it started Ocean Beach Cafe, and it was still like the pandemic was still kind of going on, and we did a Zoom like this, and that was like the first order. But for me, that's very, it's important. And things like this are important because, people who have a preconceived notion, or people, like I said, a third of the people who don't have alcohol, don't consume alcohol on a given day, that don't even know there is something that is an elevated experience in the glass and in their ritual and occasion that's available to them. It's, that's the challenge now. It's just having people
100%.
know.
What kind of
then,
outlook do you
then
think
it's the
our
aha,
industry,
but it's getting there.
for our industry in 2024, and you can include, I mean, you've touched a little bit about the non-alcoholic segment and how it's kind of turned from dry to wet, and that it's becoming more and more integrated into our culture. Is there anything else that you see as something maybe coming down the pipeline, or any major changes?
Well, I think on the changes side, just as you have one age group aging more, one demographic that was, I'm going to say more of that. And again, I'll speak here specifically about wine, the drinkers that were drinking, a particular wine almost daily, or a couple, and being very brand loyal to that wine brand, and drinking it very frequently. I think those days diminish, are diminishing. I think that's kind of continues to decrease, and that table wine, or that concept. I mean, we may see the concept of a table wine go away. And it becomes, is wine more this like special moment, special night out? It's my weekend, I'm going to have something special. Does it kind of just continue to move a little bit more in that direction? Then you have, more proliferation of maybe RTDs and ready to drink and other things like throughout the week, whether those are alcoholic and non-alcoholic. So I think we are seeing that a little bit. There's numbers to back that up, but I am very positive on the wine industry outlook. I know there's a lot of things, out there that say, wine is decreasing, it's going down here, down there. But you also see these other bright spots where it was like a record year for under 40 consumers in their purchase of fucking wines. So it's, again, I just think it's an overall shift to moderation, health, not, I don't think we're going to see just like we're going back to like a prohibition era, but I do think you're just going to see people be just more mindful of that and saying, hey, the alcohol, it's going to be like a Thursday or Friday, Saturday, Sunday. But Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I, want to be productive, and I want to go, be healthy, and I want to go be active, and, and do all these other things. So I think that is a train that has left the station. I think it's just people are trying to understand like how much that would be, on the day-to-day level. But I think that's kind of trending. And that on the flip side, that at least on the wine side, when that ritual of wine happens, once, twice, 3, 4 times a week of alcoholic wine, that you're going to see that's enjoying more premium types of bottles and premium brands, and not just premium the traditional like a luxury lifestyle sense, but maybe it's a single vineyard natural wine that is 35, 40 a bottle, but that's going to now be 100%. What's open on Thursday night, Friday.
And I think we've done dry January on different times, but this has been different just because your options aren't just tea or water or whatever, sparkling water. There's so many options out there, whether it's, wine, beer, or spirits that make up for it. You don't, and you may not even miss alcohol, but you miss the taste, right? It's the occasion, the experience, like you talked about earlier. So, it's just we're evolving, and it's a different experience, I think, and it'll continue to grow every year. So, yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I think also just this proliferation, like the move away from the, just a dry month, like a sober October, dry January to, what we're calling now a damp January. It's just kind of this more of a year round mindfulness to the drinking, a mindfulness to the consumption of alcohol, and not, just taking a hard line and then, now I'm back to my other habits on February 1st, right? Because honestly, I haven't really, my wife and I at this point, I think, at least for after Giacomo was born, and, kind of, it's very funny how the timing goes. Prima Pave was born 9 months after him. He was born in March 21 and we launched in January 22. So kind of like back-to-back kids, being born. And for us, it was, once we had this option as people who love wine, it's just now just part of our lives all the time. It's that I know Giacomo's going to be up at 6:30 a.m. tomorrow because he's an early riser. So, that value proposition of, am I going to have, some, a bottle, or we're going to have a bottle of white wine on Tuesday night, or are we going to have some, a Blanc de Blanc with this wonderful food? And I think we always think about it kind of that ritual with food. And, Monday through Wednesday, it's moving to the Prima buffet, basically, maybe Monday through Thursday, and then, dropping them off, feeling good in the morning, going for a run or something. And it's just, that's, we're also a little bit older parents at 41 with a toddler. So we need all the energy we could get. I can't be sluggish in the morning or it's going to run circles around me.
It gets harder every year. I guess, with this movement, it'll be interesting to see the effect on the finance and the healthcare industry. If we're healthier, we're living longer, it could be very interesting aspects down the road on what that looks like. That's kind of interesting to think about.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's, in a way, it's almost like, it's kind of like preventative medicine, right? I mean, it's like the concept of like, I'm not going to treat it later with a pill, but I'm like doing things now. Right? Like it's kind of like that. Like, and I think that's the exciting thing about the non-alcoholic space, and not just in wine, it's happening in spirits, trying something that gives you all that mouthfeel and aroma and complexity of a model, but it's 0.0, low calorie, and so I think we're at a period where it's just never so many options for such a diverse, at the end of the day, group of drinkers too, that we've ever seen in the history of the world, so so many different palates, so many different backgrounds of the consumer themselves, but now with so many options, and so it's exciting. I think you're gonna continue seeing more innovation and more care, and our hope is that everybody gets to enjoy a delicious sip with or without alcohol wherever they are. I mean, that's the end goal, that it's reachable, attainable everywhere, offered, and you don't have to think twice about and
Marco,
quality. That's it. So
I'm curious. I know you're busy with little Giacomo and your brand, but what do you do outside of work?
So my wife and I love to travel. I mean, and that's part, I would say, it was business for many years, but since we've had him, we've really made, even though we're in the tourism and hospitality and travel world with work, we really have made those trips, try to, avoid work at all costs. So the travel really now is really pure relaxation, trying to have also Giacomo enjoy, magical experiences and get to see different things. And that's really important to us. I do love gardening. I get a very, growing things, cultivating fruits, vegetables. That's something that's always been relaxing for me, but also just, I guess a lot of ways it equates to entrepreneurship. Maybe just
seeing it grow.
Starting with the seed and seeing the fruit at the end. Kind of, if you enjoy that, you probably will like entrepreneurship, and there's not an immediacy. You have to wait months for that fruit to come, right? So I think, in many ways, it tests that. But I love cooking, travel, gardening. Those are
all good
my
passions because you
for sure.
use them every
And
day,
hobbies too.
or nearly every day if you cook most days. So, is there anything, Marco, we haven't mentioned
Absolutely.
that you are thinking about that you might want to talk about here in closing?
In closing, I just appreciate what you do, Jesse, and I appreciate you having us because, again, so much of what we're all doing here in the non-alcoholic wine, beer, spirit space, new categories that are emerging, again, it's the education and the storytelling and, being on a podcast like yours that's so respected in the industry, in the beverage and food and beverage industry. That's important because, again, it's one of the challenges. And I think definitely in a world like that's much less about like picking up the phone. Like people just have so much like less time and, to learn. It's
Time.
in a way, there's like
Yes.
all these tools to learn, but there's like less time to learn. Right. It's really important what you do. And so I just, I want to thank you again for this because I think it's important that people understand also the nuances. And a lot of times, when you're dealing with, like I said, a trend or a category that's kind of growing, like a lot of things get glossed over. And then, some people can't like really buy into it or understand it, at a level that certainly your listeners, appreciate.
I appreciate
So
that. Thank you.
that's why what you're doing is important.
Why I created it so people can tell their stories because there's so much innovation out there and brands need to be heard, right? People need to be heard behind the brands that are doing amazing things. And if I can help you guys get some, additional exposure into what you're doing,
thank you for that time
I'm
that
super pumped about that because the future is, for me, is, F&B innovation. And so it makes me really happy to be able to meet people like you and hear your stories and be able to share them with the world. So I appreciate it. Thank you for the product and tasting us through it all. It's awesome. What you're doing is really awesome. So hats off to you and your wife for making a great brand and great quality wines. Cheers.
Thank you. And cheers to you, Jesse. Thank you.
I hope so.
Hopefully we'll meet in person sometime soon.
Yeah.
I'll one coast or the other.
Would love to.
Or in Europe if you're
I would love to.
I've
been to Italy a couple of times, but not
wonderful.
We gotta do it. We have to finish our cheers. I've been to Italy a few times, but
cheers.
I haven't really done the whole winery tours, and so that would be really fun to come over and do like a tour if you guys are still doing them. Be really fun.
Well, absolutely. We would love to have you and take you through some of the prettiest parts of it, because I think what's interesting is from a travel and heritage perspective, there's some wine regions now that are actually UNESCO heritage sites. I mean, they're so beautiful. There's so much history. Prosecco was one of the Prosecco wine route was one of the latest ones to actually become a UNESCO heritage site. So you say things there where a lot of people, the wine country around Lake Geneva, Lavaux in Switzerland is absolutely stunning. It's also a UNESCO heritage site. And so there's so much of that, or, underground cellars that go back hundreds of years and, they're connected underground. So I think there is, a real tactile storytelling to wine that's, it's not just marketing on Instagram. It's like there, you can go like smell that tunnel that looks like,
right.
hiding champagne there during the war, that's there.
Really
like
cool.
that's right. So
well,
yeah.
Again, thank you, Marco. I will say goodbye, but we'll see you soon. How about that? We'll see you soon. Okay. Yes. Okay.
See you soon. See you soon somewhere.
Absolutely. 100%. I wouldn't have it any other way. This week's episode was produced by Fedora J Productions.